Hello and welcome to our Day 3 live stream coverage from RSA Conference 2024. I'm Jameson Cush with TechTarget Editorial and Ion Tech. And if you missed us from Day 2, our Day 2 coverage, please check it out. We spoke with our intrepid security reporters for all the news and happenings from RSA Conference, as well as Jessica Gulick and her quest to make cybersecurity in esports. I'm joined once again by Sabrina Paulin. Sabrina, welcome. And are you excited for Day 3?
Thanks, Jameson. Super excited for Day 3. Again, things just keep ramping up as the week goes on, and we have a celebrity in the building somewhere.
Right
here. Yes, we've got many celebrities. Jason Sudeikis is floating around somewhere, so we're gonna catch him later. But let's talk about the celebrities that we have on set right now.
Of course. Arielle Waldman and Alex Culafi.
Thanks, Jameson.
TechTarget security reporters. You know, I was worried that we wouldn't have anything to talk about because you had joined us twice yesterday, but it turns out you've been burning the midnight oil, filing stories. I know, Alex, you had a big meeting with Microsoft, or a big press event with Microsoft right after we spoke yesterday. Please tell us about it, something about the Secure Future Initiative.
Yeah, so Microsoft invited me to a pretty small press event yesterday to talk about some of their AI initiatives, as well as the recent expansion of their Secure Future Initiative, which was something they announced last November as a means of committing to improved software development, improved vulnerability disclosures, and improved transparency. Now, they expanded that earlier this month because they had a tough string of headlines that sort of came up following that November announcement of the Secure Future Initiative. In January, they disclosed a breach by a nation-state threat actor based in Russia called Midnight Blizzard. And in April, I believe, the Department of Homeland Security released the Cyber Safety Review Board report investigating a separate breach in which a Chinese nation-state hacker tracked as Storm 558, hacked them last year. And that report slammed Microsoft. It called its security culture inadequate, said it requires an overhaul. So pretty tough few months. And Microsoft in May announced an expansion of this to say, like, hey, we're going to put security first. Very bluntly, very transparently. There's 3 main tenets: secure by design, meaning that in software development, security is going to come first. Secure by default, meaning that security controls at the customer end are going to be at the highest level possible, and they won't be optional. And then secure the organization, I believe, is the third one, which is just a general commitment to further transparency, better disclosure of cloud vulnerabilities, and a few other things. And what was so interesting to me was that I've written some headlines about Microsoft in the past that were critical, talked to industry executives and the like. And it was a positive sign to me that Microsoft invited me to a fairly small press event at RSA to talk to executives, including one of their corporate vice presidents of security, Vasu Jakal, to talk to me more about the Secure Future Initiative. She called the Cyber Safety Review Board report and the recent breaches sobering, and she was pretty transparent about Microsoft's plans moving forward to prioritize security at the software development level, and to also say that independent of all this stuff going on, it's critical to secure by design, because in this new AI landscape we have, if you don't secure by design, there's going to be a lot of misconfiguration issues and a lot of identity security issues that folks are going to have to worry about later, which is exactly what happened with cloud 10 years ago.
So I'll read the quote. I think we had a direct quote from Vasu. It was, if you look at the threat landscape that we're seeing, it continues to escalate, and we always talked about advanced persistent threats, but they're getting a lot more persistent. So it seems like at all these, you've said you've been to 4 RSAs, and how many has Microsoft sort of reiterated their commitment to security? Because it seems like they get picked on a lot.
So, if we're not talking lip service type, like the way everyone says that they prioritize security, I really think that this focus on transparency and more secure development is something that happened in the last 6 months. And I think that's necessary because Microsoft has been impacted by a breach, I believe, like every year since 2020 or 2021. I think they may have even gotten some astray from the SolarWinds breach. So they've had a tough go of things. And what's doubly difficult is that one of these breaches, I think it was the Midnight Blizzard one, involved an account that didn't have multi-factor authentication on it. It was a test tenant one. And I believe the Cyber Safety Review Board report called many aspects of the Storm 558 China nation-state breach avoidable. And so between that and I think a willingness on the part of competitors of Microsoft to outright criticize them in the public consciousness, public zeitgeist, whatever, Microsoft has needed to do something like this for a while. And on the reporter side, it's like, I'll keep a critical eye on things. Like I'll believe it when I see it to some extent. But the blog post that Charlie Bell, their executive vice president of security, wrote earlier this month, and the conversation I had with Vasu were promising first steps, at least in my eyes.
Excellent.
Sure. So yesterday we talked a little about Volt Typhoon, and I know you guys have both covered this. Arielle, you wrote a story recently where you said experts warned that Volt Typhoon will pose a persistent threat to critical infrastructure organizations as well as small to medium enterprises for years to come. Yeah. Who is Volt Typhoon? Why are we talking about this? Yeah. What do they want?
Oh, definitely. Volt Typhoon, they are a Chinese nation-state threat actor. They're also an advanced persistent threat group. Microsoft tracks them as Volt Typhoon. During one campaign, they compromised hundreds of US-based home routers, and they use that access now. During a hearing, Jen Easterly, the CISA director, she said that they actually hid in victim IT's networks to maintain access, and they may have maintained that access. They've been hiding in those networks for at least 5 years now without being detected, so maybe even longer, we're not sure.
So why? Why are they just hanging out doing nothing?
They want to maintain access in the case of a major conflict with the U.S. so they can use that access to cause disruptions to critical infrastructures. Mm-hmm. They really target energy, water, transportation, anything that they could use to disrupt our critical infrastructure in the case of a major conflict with the U.S. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer just about cyber espionage and threat intelligence gathering. They're really holding on to that access to use it for future use, mm-hmm. which poses a much persistent threat.
Right, so what makes it so hard to detect organizations like this, groups like this?
They're using what's called living off the land techniques, so it makes detection a lot harder. They use, for example, you could use commercial tools instead of custom malware. Things like endpoint detection and response, they're not meant to detect commercial tools because they should be in your environment. They are meant to detect malware, but if you're not using it, then there's nothing to detect. Mm-hmm. And in one session, I learned that some living off the land techniques, they'll just buy, use a 30-day free trial of a commercial tool to attack an organization. So I'm not sure how they get access.
Yeah. You're just like us.
Yeah, living off the land attacks are, I think, becoming increasingly popular as defense technologies are getting better, whether that's EDR, other such things. It's very appealing, the idea of an attack that just uses or primarily uses the software in the victim environment, because that's a lot harder for an antivirus type thing to detect.
Exactly.
And to answer your earlier question, Sabrina, one of the appeals to being undetected as long as possible is that you can just do more. I mean, you can build more hooks into the victim environment, which means if they catch you in one place, they might not catch you in the other places. You can exfiltrate more data, and I think that's the main reason why persistent access is just so appealing, because the longer you're there, the more you can do.
Yeah, definitely.
And Arielle, you said that pretty much every session, every person you've talked to today has talked about Volt Typhoon. What are the experts saying?
They have. They said that they're still observing Volt Typhoon intrusions currently, so the threat is very prevalent, persistent, ongoing. In every session they brought up Volt Typhoon and how, and it's most significant because of the critical infrastructure aspect and that they're targeting them, so it just keeps being brought up.
Yeah.
I know, and it's sobering because we're having these conversations with the attendees here, the professionals, and everyone is excited and they want to talk security. We're talking security as an e-sport, but then it's also extremely sobering. And keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing us down.
Oh, definitely. I know they've been trying to help critical infrastructure. The U.S. government, they have all new standards and requirements, but it doesn't seem like anything's kind of working toward that end.
So that use of sort of commercial over-the-counter software, that was also a theme in the Sentinel-1 Global Threat report, the story you had written about that overview. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, sure. Alex Stamos from Sentinel-1, he talked about how ransomware actors are also using living off the land techniques now, which is an evolution there. They used to just kind of deploy ransomware, as we kind of talked about. They do data extortion threats, but now they're actually evading endpoint detection and response tools by using the living off the land techniques and commercial tools instead. So the ransomware threat's already really bad. They reached record highs last year. So that's just, it's not good that they're still evolving.
I just want to, Alex mentioned this too, I just want to reiterate, that sort of off-the-shelf, just commercial software, that is harder to detect than the custom malware, the stuff that is designed to do. I mean, is there, other than people just expect it to be in their systems?
The commercial tools, you mean?
Yeah, it's
how
what
do
makes
you
it so hard?
detect
Yeah,
it?
why it makes it so hard to detect, and how do you? What do you do?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to detect because it's kind of meant to be in your system, so like programs and things don't really monitor for that. It's harder to identify suspicious activity that way. When they use malware and things, that kind of sets off more alerts about suspicious activity, and the commercial tools don't set off those alerts as much. You just have to kind of be more aware and maybe follow on the enterprise more to monitor and their logs and things like that for suspicious activity, or know who has access to what for those commercial tools and when something suspicious pops up.
And by commercial tools, a couple good examples are Cobalt Strike, which is a red teaming tool. Red teaming, as you might know, is the idea of legitimate, good actors as a security hardening practice trying to infiltrate a customer's environment, basically pretending to be the threat actor. Cobalt Strike is a tool used for doing that, but it's so good at its job that it's the primary tool that some threat actors use to also actually breach customer environments. Another example is TeamViewer, remote access tools, which are just, like everyone's IT department will sometimes use it to install new software or whatever, but if through social engineering or if you start with a living off the land attack, you get access to remote access software, that gives you, in some cases, admin potentially root access to a victim environment without needing fancy malware at all.
Exactly. That's why it's important to know who the users that they take over authenticated users and just use that access, so it's hard to identify that it's a malicious actor.
And there was a quote in your story, just to bring it back to Microsoft. It was, I almost feel bad saying it. So there was Alex Stamos, he had said, I think you know what I'm saying here, about Microsoft Exchange. Here's a tip, never use a Microsoft product that Microsoft themselves don't even use anymore. That's a bad sign. So with the Microsoft, I mean, I wanted to get at this when Alex was talking about it. They're the big dog though. I mean, and that's what makes them the big target, correct? Because they're just in every company, they're whatever, 99% of the market. So is that what makes them the target?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think that's part of it. A lot of people use Windows Active Directory, which stores credentials that attackers target a lot as well. That's kind of a gold mine for them because the credentials are stored there. So I think a lot of their products do just attract a lot of attention. I mean, Alex, I feel like probably has a lot to add.
This is one of the more difficult questions that I've had to answer over the last year or two as I've looked into Microsoft stuff, because Microsoft is probably the biggest, most prolific, almost certainly tech company in the world. But if you look at other companies of a similar scale, Google, for example, they're not ending up in the news for nation-state breaches that were considered avoidable if Microsoft did like two easy things, right?
Right.
Maybe not easy, but you know what I'm saying. So it's been interesting to me because as folks like Alex Stamos, Tenable CEO, has weighed in on this, CrowdStrike has weighed in on this, very critical of Microsoft. It's interesting and challenging for me as a reporter because on the one hand, I'm like, a lot of these criticisms are valid.
Yeah.
Microsoft has had a tough go of things that the organization themselves were responsible for.
Right.
On the other hand, a lot of these folks are Microsoft competitors. I mean, Alex Stamos wasn't exactly a Microsoft, he's with Sentinel-1 now, so I guess that sort of counts, but then Tenable and CrowdStrike are both Microsoft competitors.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me wonder, did a salesperson come at them and say, hey, there's a real opportunity here because we can use these legitimate criticisms to gain some leverage over Microsoft customers looking to switch? So that actually becomes a really difficult push and pull. And the way you solve that is just you get more and more sources to corroborate that. But it's a weird question to answer, but a good one.
I do also think since they are so widely used, they should probably be held to higher standards. So I think that's important as well.
I think a lot of folks have called them the guardian of the security industry, whether they want it or not. Because how many computers use Windows?
Right.
How many computers use Windows Defender? How many computers and networks and organizations use 365?
Yep.
And Microsoft has a responsibility, whether it wants it or not, to protect those customers and to be a good role model for the rest of the industry. The criticism has been that they haven't really been that because if they're not getting hit by breaches, they're upselling their own products in a way that seemed to prioritize product and financials over security. And that brings us back, I think, from your story and mine, back to the idea that Microsoft, in particular, even independent of its scale, has really needed to get out there and emphasize that, hey, this has been tough, and going forward, we're going to do better. Whether they actually do it, we'll see, but it's good that they're promising, at least as a first step.
Well, they're trying to be, from your story this morning, it seems like they're trying to be more transparent. And there was a quote in your story regarding if you shame them, I forget who said it, but if shaming them can be counterproductive because they might not be so transparent.
Yeah, I talked to Brian Reed from Proofpoint, and he said the name and shame can kind of, be counterproductive. You don't want to make them withdraw and not share more information. So yeah, twofold there.
All right, well, this is your last full day here at RSA. You guys have a lot going on today. What are you looking forward to rest of the day? What's on your agenda?
Oh yeah, like Alex said, he was talking about the red teaming. I'm going to a session by First Bank, and they're going to talk about a use case where they actually did a red teaming event for 3 years and how that helped them.
Okay.
So I think that'll be interesting to see. It's nice to actually hear from an enterprise and some kind of success, hopefully it's a success story, the real world tangible, how they used it, and hear from an enterprise firsthand.
Yeah,
so I'm excited to see that.
And Alex, what are you looking forward to the rest of the day?
Yeah, I'll focus on two things. One is I'm talking to CISA, the cyber agency, the U.S. government cyber agency. Its executive director, Brandon Wales, today. I'm excited to do that. I'm going to ask about nation-state threats. I'm going to ask about Lockbit, which has been in the news as we discussed on one of yesterday's streams. And the other thing I'm interested in is there is a secure elections panel in a couple hours, 12:15. And I'm interested in learning more about protecting elections this year and how folks plan to do that, because this is a particularly big election year. Like, I mean, for us in the United States, presidential election, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's like 60-something nations have their national election this year, plus the European Union, representing almost half of the population, if I got my numbers right. Protecting election security, even though we think about it as a U.S. foremost issue, it's actually a really interesting global issue, particularly this year. So I'm interested to see what what folks have to say about that.
Definitely.
And you're joining us at 4:30
Yeah.
Pacific time
We are.
to talk all about it.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
You
I know
bet.
you were up late last night writing. I know you have a full day of interviews and then capping it off with us, so we appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Of
no
course,
problem.
thanks for having us.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you for joining us. Day 3 live stream coverage, as I said, continues again at 4:30, talking to Arielle and Alex. Please like and subscribe, and thank you again.